Hey, it's Micah, pastor of TwoCities.Church and Two Cities Online, and I am so excited you're hanging out again with us for the We Are Two Cities podcast. Today's conversation is with Jim and Carrie Tienken, who recently invited a friend who lives next to their vacation cabin. I know that's a lot of information, but someone who lives next door to them at their vacation cabin over to watch the Two Cities Online service, and the results were great. And so they just want to encourage people to invite others over to watch with them if it is safe and possible for you. So it's a great conversation. I hope you gained something from it. Let's get into it. Well, I want to thank you, Jim and Carrie, for joining me on the Two Cities, We Are Two Cities podcast and video podcast. And really, I wanted to talk to you guys because you've been such a big part of our church. And I've heard a lot of wins from you over the past year. We struggled through COVID and all the things around that, and we've all had a lot of emotions around that. So why don't we start there? How have you guys kind of weathered the storm of COVID? What's that been like for you?
Well, it's been all over the map. It's been up and down, and a variety of emotions, from anger and frustration and just plain tired of this, to times of feeling like I'm drawing closer to God, and I'm learning, and I'm growing. So it really tied in with one message we heard sometime in the last year that our small group did, that talked about the abundant Christian life is not just a straight line up and to the right, but it is up and down graph all over the place.
I love the fancy graph you have there.
A line of it, but the key is that Jesus is with us in all those places. I don't have to be perfect and smiling and outgoing and wonderful every moment, or Jesus is gonna run out the door. He's with us. So
the wife might run out the door.
Yeah.
But Jesus, he'll hang around.
Yeah.
That's really funny because Erica, we often laugh about like old songs we learned as kids in church, and one of them talked about how you're happy, happy, happy all the time. And she was always like, I never got that. That didn't make sense to me. I was not happy all the time. And I felt like there was something wrong with me if I wasn't. And so that makes sense. What you're saying there.
Yeah, well, I think it's easy to get those misunderstandings. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like trying to figure out, okay, they had all these rules in the Old Testament.
Right.
Which ones am I supposed to follow? And are all those still in effect now? But aren't we in the New Testament? And nobody ever says, well, these are the ones that apply, and that thing about not eating pork is, you don't have to follow that one.
Right.
It's a little vague.
Absolutely. I am in my reading right now. I'm going through 2 Samuel, and there's just a lot there that you look at and you go, that wouldn't fly today. Or, that's not really, I don't feel like that's how God actually calls us individually as Christ followers to act or lead or whatever. And somehow it's treated a little bit different in these historical accounts. And so, yeah, there's a lot of different kinds of literature in the Bible. We can go into this. We talk about it sometimes in church, but at Two Cities, but there's a lot of intricacies in the entire collection of these ancient texts. And as you're growing up, all you hear is like, this is the word of God. And so you think, oh, well, okay, all of it must be equally applicable to my life since it's the word of God. And then you realize, as you start reading it for yourself, there's not a possible way for this to be all applicable to my life equally. So you start trying to figure that out, and that's why people say, oh, Christians just cherry pick, what they want to follow. Well, no, that's actually, some people do, but but there is actually pieces of it that are directed at Christ followers and not just the people of Israel or the Hebrew nation or all those sorts of things. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. So helping our kids understand that is very important.
That kind of ties in with being, you're focusing on loving our neighbors in the month of January was very helpful to me, because it kind of just reminded me what we're really supposed to be focusing in on, the commandments of Jesus, which were, to love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And so to start talking about loving our neighbor as something we can do even in the midst of COVID, and maybe I can't go over and sit in their living room, but there's other ways to do that. That was really, really good, because it gave me a place to focus some of my energy.
Well, you mentioned, maybe you can't go into somebody's living room, but all of us have sort of our COVID circle of who we've kind of let into our physical life and space. And some of us have been more careful than others. Some of us have been, more prone to not do that than others. But we've all had people that we've let into our circle. You guys have done that too. There's a cabin sometimes you guys go to, an old family cabin, and there's neighbors up there. So tell me the story of your neighbor from your cabin.
Our neighbor at the cabin, her name is Shirley, and she lives up there full time. We just go up once or twice a month. She lives up there full time, and she is one of these people that can drive long distances frequently. But so her normal church that she usually goes to is actually here in Fresno, which is about 2 hours away. So there's a lot of Sundays when the roads are too snowy or too icy or whatever, and she can't come her 2 hours to Fresno church. So we invited her to watch on video with us one Sunday, and she thought that was great, because she just had to walk across the street and get a nice cup of tea in our kitchen, and we sat down and watched church from our cabin, which was great, because ordinarily if we were up at the cabin on Sundays, we would be missing the service.
Right. Which it's been fantastic to allow people the freedom and the thing. It's such a fine line, because when you're, a small church, you're meeting in person, you're set up, tear down, you need a lot of volunteers. When people tell me, oh, I'll be out of town, this week or this week or this week, immediately, unavoidably, my mind goes, well, how are we going to pull that off? But it's been such a blessing in this time to be like, go have fun, tune in if you can, or catch up later. God be with you, and feel no, like, oh man, no disappointment in that, but actually excitement for them. And that's a great place. For me, I feel way better about that than I did when I was like, oh man, and some people would leave for, their summer schedule was crazy because they're in education or something. And so they take a lot of weekend trips, and I was always like, man, I'm not going to see them for like 2 months, 3 months. And that was tough. But right now, the advantage of right now is that I'm not thinking that way at all. I'm glad you get to go up to the mountains, twice a month or more. And so that's great. And so for you to invite pre-COVID, you probably wouldn't even have thought to do that. You wouldn't have thought, well, our church posts their sermons on YouTube. Maybe I'll invite our neighbor over and we'll watch one together while we're up there one weekend. Like that wouldn't have been something that entered your mind.
Probably not. And we typically arranged our schedule so we would be at home and going to church and helping with setup and those kind of things, so that we didn't have a Sunday church time and at the cabin all hitting on the same day. So
I don't
you're
think
right.
People realize this, but you had a heart attack, and it was hard for you not to help. You had to limit yourself not helping setting up
for a while.
And Carrie's like, don't let him do this, It's like, I'm doing my best, not to let him lift anything, and that was a discipline for you. And that's just the kind of, when I see you guys, that's the kind of people you are. You want to help. You want to engage. You want to do anything that you can. Before this, I had joked, hey, you guys, be a totem pole in the picture because we're going to split the screen. And then when you showed up, you were in a totem pole and said, whatever you ask. It's like, man, you guys are the best.
You want us to do it again for you?
No, it's good. It's good. I think
Okay.
we understand. But that's the kind of people you are. And that's the kind of people I want. I'm not saying you're perfect, so, I'm not putting that on you. But you are thinking about others. You're trying to serve others. You're trying to manage your time and resources for God's glory. And I just really appreciate that. And the fact that you would ask your neighbor to come over and watch, recognizing she's not driving to her church today. Maybe she would like to come over. I mean, she lives in more isolation than most people did before because she lives up there. And so let's try to create some community here. Now, you also invited over to your home some family, or they happened to be there one Sunday, and you watched the service together. How was that experience?
Well, we did invite them to watch the service. It wasn't just a happened to be there thing, and they did come, and it was a really good experience. In fact, one of the side benefits of that, they watched the service on our TV and realized that we did not have a sound bar. So they gave us a sound bar for Christmas.
That's great.
Last Christmas. So,
It
it was a great benefit for us to invite somebody over.
That's perfect. I love that. So, I mean, most people don't think of doing that sort of thing. They don't think of inviting a friend, a neighbor, a family member over and watching service with them. You've had a couple of positive experiences with that, created some interesting conversation. You sent me some videos of your neighbor, Shirley, right?
Right.
Up in the mountains, talking about her side of the experience.
Hello, my name is Shirley. I am the neighbor of Jim and Carrie Tienken in Camp Nelson.
Go ahead.
Sometimes it's difficult for me to go to my church because it is about a 2-hour drive one way. And so when Carrie and Jim are here, we can do the online church and have very meaningful discussions afterwards. They get right to the point, to the message that they want to give. This one happened to be love thy neighbor, and I was having a difficult time loving somebody, and so it really hit home.
Have you found that you were able to apply some of what you heard on that Sunday?
Absolutely. And it did take some of the animosity away, and because it just struck home that, oh yeah, that's what it means. I appreciated Jim and Carrie coming over and asking me if I would like to join them for their Sunday morning service. As I said earlier, it's difficult for me to get away sometimes, but this puts life and things I may not agree with in perspective, and I'm able to see it from a biblical standpoint.
Did you have some conversation after the service?
Yes, and even when I come over sometimes, and there has been no service, we do have conversations regarding the Bible and how to apply it to regular life. During the past week or 2 weeks before I watched the video, I met a young lady, and there are other people up here too, that seem like they're lost. They need a little extra help. And in listening to the Love Thy Neighbor, it gave me a perspective that I was able to go back in and help them, either just verbally or just by listening to them and helping them get back on the path where they should be.
So Shirley, would you recommend that people invite folks over to their home to watch online church?
Absolutely, because in the times that we are right now, people are needing to know that there is somebody, God, that is there for them if they need it. And usually whenever you invite somebody, it's going to, whatever the lesson is, will speak to them, and they will be able to apply it to their lives.
If you could just encourage people to do that, what would you say to someone who's who hasn't thought about it or has been thinking about, maybe I ought to invite someone over to watch it with me. Like, what would you say to someone who is thinking about that?
Well, I think for me, the thought that's been running through my head lately is come as you are, and we are so informal as a society now. It's like pajama church or pajama work or whatever, and so with inviting your neighbor over, you just say, hey, come as you are. You don't have to have the fancy hat this year, and you don't have to have the white gloves or the new dress. It just come over as you are, and we'll sit and watch the service together, and maybe afterwards eat a marshmallow peep or something on Easter. But it's
so you're specifically talking about inviting someone over to watch Easter with you,
right?
Which is
right
around the corner,
right? Yeah,
April 4th, if you don't know.
Well, I don't think that this is something that is always easy. It's not like we invite everybody we come across or every neighbor, and it's been something that has taken some intentionality over a period of time. I guess what I would say is that I've just paid attention better. So if I'm talking to somebody, I'm listening for clues that would say, wow, there's some interest here. They have some questions, or they might enjoy listening to or sitting in on one of our services because they're not doing anything. That type of thing. It's not that we're out there, seeing if we can knock on every door and get a percentage at all. It's more, and Shirley was a perfect example of that. We've had a lot of conversations in the past, and some of them related to church and what we believe, but not a lot of that. But they've always been good conversations, and there was an openness. And she's been to our cabin before, and we go over and see her. So it just, it felt like it fit into the normal relationship that we had.
Right.
Well, and I think another thing that makes it easier to invite people over is like if they're saying, oh, I don't like to go to church, the music's too loud, say, hey, we have a volume button, we can tune that baby way down. So it's really good.
I had not thought about that. in the same vein of thinking, it's like you can yell at the pastor and disagree with him if you
right.
And you can even be on your phone during church, and he likes it. That's been a little bit weird for us to get adjusted to, but we're getting right there.
There you go. You mentioned something, Jim. You said clues in conversations. We've talked about this at Two Cities, like being clued into conversations. We called it the cues to who was kind of the phrase we used. And there were three basic things we were looking for, hints that people would drop, and maybe they're not even aware of them, in conversation that would be sort of an indication that maybe I ought to invite this person to church or to an event that could eventually lead them into an understanding and relationship with Jesus. And those things were, first of all, they're not engaged in a church community, could be a major clue. They're not, things aren't going well for them. There's some sort of pain point for them that maybe a principle of God would probably help them with. Or they're not prepared for the next season of their life. They're entering into a season, maybe a baby, a graduation, a marriage, a divorce, a death. There's some or job change or COVID happens, and they're not prepared for the next season of life. And so that's a big cue to they may be open to something new to help them in their life. And so those are three things that we've kind of talked about, probably haven't talked about enough, but the cues to who. So I really love that you're not necessarily using that terminology, but you're thinking those things.
Right.
And so
I really appreciate that you're not one of those kind of pastors that's trying to check up on his church members all the time. You didn't say, well, Jim, what are those three things we talk about all the time? Because that would have been a lot of dead air.
Jim, don't you remember all the specific words that we have said about this in the past? You do not know the 10 Commandments of inviting people to church online? Anyway.
Yeah, it's not like that.
Yeah, it's not like that. And I recognize that most people, when they learn something, they don't learn the specific words, they learn the concept. And
Right.
so trying to get someone to regurgitate the specific words is like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Oh, you're just talking about it in paying attention to who I should invite to church. Oh, okay, I understand that.
Well, I think part of that, and there's a lot I don't understand, but I have been more intentional during most of the COVID time to pray about how can I love my neighbor. And so I've been trying to get better at that, and that means becoming a little better listener and a lot of things that it's just not something that comes automatically, or that you flip a switch and you're able to do it. But I do think that God is going to help us see things we maybe didn't see before, because we've been asking him to open our eyes a little wider, or tune our ears a little bit.
I heard someone say recently that the limit to spiritual growth we can have during COVID is our personal, private spiritual disciplines. That's our only limit. I've just been trying to encourage people that now is a time to grow. I have been playing around with an app on my phone during COVID that is a piano learning app. Okay, so someone gifted us a piano just over a year ago, right before everything hit. We got it tuned, and I have this app. So I'll sit down, a few days a week, and I'll spend 10, 15 minutes just going through the lessons on the app, which my family doesn't always enjoy. And sometimes Erica's like, can we stop the piano? But I've enjoyed it. It's been a little release, a little outlet, kind of unlocks a different part of my brain. And so I've been growing in that, right? And I don't have like a goal, like I want to be some world-renowned pianist. I don't want to pursue some musician, job or anything. I just want that for me. And I want to be able to play a couple worship songs or something in my house and enjoy that. And I kind of surprised someone recently. I sat down at their piano and played a little bit, and they were like, what has happened? I said, it's like Groundhog Day, like COVID, Groundhog Day. You can learn whatever you want. You have some different time on your hands, or you have some different space in your life and so I'm just trying to utilize what I've got, and who knows how it could help somebody. Anyway, that was something that stuck out to me, and they said, I have not utilized this like I should have. That's what they said. So,
well, Carrie's been utilizing it. She's set herself goals on running, so working up to a 5K, following a program on her phone, and then now she's working towards a 10K, and
nice.
She's just doing that all on her own, because
Yeah.
I'm not out there running with her. But it's kind of back to your point of utilizing this time in a productive way, and not a way of just saying, I'm frustrated, and moping around about it.
Yeah.
Well, the way it was for me was when COVID hit last March, I was like most people going, ugh, I'm just going to try to survive.
Mm-hmm.
But then I remember we belong to Kaiser, and then Kaiser has some billboards up there that say thrive.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to myself, okay, I'm not going to just survive. I want to thrive. And so the running was a way that I was able to start off slow, and I ran a 5K, and then I had one of those really wonderful birthdays coming up. So I decided, instead of going, I'm old, I was going to do a 10K for my birthday. So I'm 4 weeks out of that, and that's really given me a lot of positive reinforcement of being challenged a little bit every time, but being able to be successful and doing something that I never thought I could do before.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. All right. Did you use the Couch to 5K
Yep.
for that?
Yep. And then they have the 10K. They say, "Oh, you did that. You want to go another
The
way?"
5K to
So,
10K?
yeah. Yeah.
What's amazing? Okay, before my kids, or when Josiah was born, I was running. I have not been a runner since we moved here. But before we moved, I was running almost every day, and I got up to my peak was 9.5 miles, and I was like, "This is incredible! I can't believe I just did that." And there was something every time I passed a previous milestone. It was like I didn't think that was possible. And suddenly there was new possibility that entered into my brain. And there's something about, and it translates in other areas of life. And so
Absolutely.
when you unlock that goal, it's like the ceiling just lifts and you're like, oh, more is possible. I thought I was stuck, but more is possible. And I don't know, there's something really powerful about that. So as we approach into this Easter season, as it's been a historically, I don't know if you guys know, but Easter's kind of a big deal. And
Yes.
yeah, and it's always been a big deal for guests to attend church services. Grandma, mom, friend, boyfriend, wife, somebody is usually trying to invite somebody else into that who has been maybe resistant or not interested at all. And because it's Easter, sometimes they're able to be a little more successful in that invite journey. And so now we're at this time again, only we're going to be having Easter online. We did last year. And we heard a story last night in our leadership team meeting call of someone who watched our Easter service last year and just this past week finally took a step into one of our Zoom groups. And so that's a huge encouragement to me that this couple would then walk into this and be discovering that and trying to, and they're self-described not church people. As an encouragement, what would be your encouragement to help people think and unlock that this is impossible? What could be something that someone could do? And maybe we've already said it, but what would be your encouragement to someone thinking about that?
Well, I think just, come as you are. If they can, people that you're, like you said earlier, you already feel safe about, then you feel safe about grandma or your brother-in-law coming over in their pajama pants. So just say, hey, come over in your pajama pants and we'll watch the Easter service and then color eggs together. Or if you don't maybe want to invite them to your home, you can invite them to do a watch party, and it's totally, come as you are in that aspect of just however they are, wherever they are. And,
Right.
If they want to eat, weird Easter food or eat 5 dozen peeps during the service, they can do it.
When I think that a lot of the barriers to extending an invitation they're more inside of us than they are somewhere else. It's we tend to build up all these ideas of how somebody's going to react to something, but if we put it into a different context, like say, hey, come over and watch the Super Bowl with us. We'll have lots of food. Hang out a while,
Right.
and you don't have, you need to leave, fine.
Right.
That would not be, that wouldn't feel awkward or strange or anything. And to realize that some of those things, when we get around events like Easter, the barriers are inside of us. And somebody, if you said, hey, come over, we're going to have some food and hang out and do a little thing for the kids and watch our service online. And I don't think that you're going to find people are going to be all negative about it. Some might come, some might not, but it's
Right.
It's worth giving it a shot.
Yeah, I would agree with you. We build up the possible responses to these life altering, roadblocks. And I don't know if you've ever had the experience. You thought about something. You're like, man, I'm thinking about this for a long time, and you build it up and build it up and build it up, and maybe it's a conversation you want to have with someone, or an ask you have with someone, or whatever. And then when you finally do it, it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple when you finally do it, and it hasn't built up in their mind, and it's like either okay or yes or no or I don't know. But it's not such a big deal. And then you are released to move on, and there may be future conversations about that in the future, and maybe not, but you're not, I guess, obligated to continue to build it up and think about it. And it releases and relieves a piece of your energy. So,
and I think we can remember that, at least at this point in time, most people I talk to, they would really like to hang out with people.
Yeah.
And if you are inside that safe circle, or now a lot of people are getting the vaccination and they feel a little more relaxed about doing things, they're going to look forward to an opportunity to hang out with real live people. We've had a small group that was going before COVID started. People would come to our home, and then COVID started, and we migrated to Zoom. And then later on, some of those people felt comfortable to come to our home, and some still wanted to maintain the distance. So we had a mixed thing going. Some on Zoom, some in our living room. But it was kind of whatever the comfort level was. But I just remember that first time that we had somebody come to our home after several months of being strictly on Zoom.
Right.
We were like clinging to each other. I mean, not literally, but they came early and they stayed late. And we were delighted because we were so glad to just have some face-to-face time with real live people.
Well, and I remember saying to myself, my goodness, they look so big, because we're used to seeing those little tiny square.
They're a real life person. Oh my goodness.
Really big.
That's funny. You think about the concepts of hospitality through Scripture and the culture they were living in. And there was such a hospitable nature and personality to the culture. Like if you come to my house, I don't care if I only have enough food for you. You're getting food. Like we're going to take care of you. And maybe a part of that was that a lot of the time it was like hand to the plow. They were just working so hard and that's why I think too, festivals and religious activities were such a big deal, because it was a break from all that other stuff. And now we've been in this sort of isolated, everybody stay apart time where it's become so much more powerful to be next to someone. And so that's a really big deal to be able to have that. And not everyone is there, and not everyone is comfortable with that. And we've had COVID as a family. It wasn't fun. We got through it. Everyone knows someone who's had either died or had a very dramatic or traumatic experience with COVID. So we don't take it lightly, but it's not the end of the world. And we're going to move forward. So there's hope here. And our hope is in Jesus, right? Not in anything else.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I was joking with Jim about the other night was Paul says, to a Jew, I'll be a Jew, and to a Greek, I'll be a Greek. So our new modern day thing is, to the masked, I'll be a masked, and to the socially distanced, I'll be a socially distanced. But in order to win some.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to look at it. Like, our mission in life is not to convince people of the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of a mask. Let someone else do that. Our mission is to lead people to Jesus. So if we need to wear a mask to do that, we'll wear a mask to do that. I think that's a great place to be. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to hang out with me on this. I apologize that you're a little fuzzier than I am, but we got you here. You told some great stories. You gave us some inspiration, some application even. And if people didn't know you before, they're glad to know a little bit more about you now. And we just really appreciate everything you guys do for the kingdom. So thank you for your service to the kingdom of God.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, God bless you guys. If you have not subscribed and you are listening today, please subscribe. We'll have more stories coming out, more people to talk to, and more inspiration for you and application for you, all for the purpose of leading you towards Jesus. So God bless you, and we'll see you in the next one.
Go running, go running.
Go running.